Before we begin working with our base 5 enumeration system, I want to practice with you how to regroup and rearrange a number in multiple ways. You know that this represents ones place. The strip, which we call the log, represents tens place, and the flat, which is the square, represents hundreds place. Now, if I ask you to represent the number 12 in two different ways, well, typically 12 would be a long and 2 units. That would be our typical way of writing 12. But we can regroup 12, and instead of saying that I have a long and 2 units, I can make this long into 10 units. So I take it away and I replace it with units. This is what we do when we are subtracting. We borrow from tens place and we make it 12 ones. So we borrow a 10. Okay, let's say that you have the number 142, and I ask that you write that in two ways. Well, there are many ways that we could regroup this, but the typical way of writing 142 would be to have a flat, 4 longs, and 2 units. Well, if I decide that I want to make this flat into 10 longs, those are equivalent, and so I could replace this flat with 10 longs. Alright, so I now have 10 plus 4, 14 longs and 2 units, which is equivalent to the flat, 4 longs and 2 units. It's just regrouping or renaming equivalent amounts. Alright, let me give you one to do. I want you to write 136 in two ways. We have 100. We have 3 longs. That's 30. And then we need 6 units. Now in the previous example, I replaced the flat with 10 longs. So that was one way, and if you did that, that is perfect. But you know, I could replace one long with 10 units, like I did on the first example. So that would be one way of renaming $132. But if you did the 10 longs in place of the flat, that would be fine as well. Okay, now I want you to get your base 5 pieces. We need to talk about those. Give you a minute to put up your base 10 pieces. The reason that we study different bases is so that students get a better understanding of place value. I know that for some of you on your basic skills exam, you're having a little trouble remembering the place value. And so by doing this activity with students of different bases, we might use base 3, we might use base 7. It just happens that in your kit, they've provided us with base 5 pieces. And so that's what we will use. And then we will go from our base 5 pieces to drawing out on graph paper other bases. Okay, let me give you a little review. You know that in our number system, it's based on 10. Our Hindu Arabic number system is a base of 10, so that our ones place is actually 10 to the 0 power. Our tens place is 10 to the first power. Our hundreds place is 10 to the second power. Our thousands place is 10 to the third power. And 10,000s place is 10 to the fourth power, and so on. Well, in our base 5 numeration system, this is our unit. And our unit is 5 to the 0 power. This is our long, which represents 5 to the first power. This is our flat, and it represents 5 to the second power. And this is our long flat, and our long flat represents 5 to the third power. So 5 to the first power would be 5's place. 5 to the second power would be 25's place. And 5 to the third power would be 125's place. So instead of our ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, then we are looking at a base of 5, which is ones, fives, 25s, and 125s. So if I put together a number like this, and I ask you to write that number in base 5, I have no units. I have 1 long, I have 2 flats, and I have 1 long flat, and that is in base 5. Now, anytime that we are using a different base other than base 10, we write the base as a small subscript in the lower right below units place or ones place. So you have 1210 base 5. Now we try to spell out the base so that it doesn't look like or that we can tell that it is a subscript. If we write it like this, which often we see it this way, we have to be careful that the 5 does not look like units place. So make it a subscript. Okay, let's practice some more. You write this base 5 number. Okay, I'm finished putting up. So now you write that number in base 5. Okay, so you should have written 3 units, 4 longs, and 3 flats, base 5. And that's the way it's read, 343, base 5. All right, now we run into a problem sometimes if we have in any category enough for us to round up. So let me show you some examples of what I mean by that. My little units are flying everywhere. Okay, so that should be enough. All right, one important concept You know, in our base 10 number system, we have 10 digits. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, up to 9, which is 10 digits. But once we get past 9, we have to use our place value in order to make the number 10. 1, 10, and 0 ones. But we have 10 digits, but 0 is counted as one of those. All right, in the base 5 numeration system, there are 5 digits: 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is no 5 in base 5. If we want to write 5, we have to use place value, because 5's place is the second place over. So if you have 5, that is 1, 0, base 5. So you have the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is 1, 0, base 5. So the problem that we're going to encounter when we have this number is that if we have 5 units, that's going to make a long. So I'm going to rearrange so that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take these 5 units and I'm going to replace those 5 units with a long. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 units left, which is 5. Fine. All right, now when I get to the longs, if I have 5 longs, they make a flat. So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 longs, and I'm going to replace those 5 longs with a flat. And now if I have 5 flats, that's going to make a long flat. And so I take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I now have a long flat. When I go to write this number, I have to remember that there are 0 flats, and I'll have to represent 0 as a placeholder for that position. So I have 1 long flat, I have no flats, I have 1 long, and I have 4 units, and that is all in base 5. Red 1014, base 5. All right, let's look at another example where we have to regroup. All right, so I have these units, and I want to know what number that would represent. So I'm going to group in 5s and replace each 5 with a long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's a long. I'll take out another group of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a long. And another group of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is a long. So when I go to represent this number, I have 3 longs. I have no units. and that is base 5. All right, sometimes we want to go the other way. If I give you the base 5 number and I ask you how many units that would be, which basically would be, what base 10 number is it? So let's say that you have a flat and you have 3 units. How many units is that? Well, I know that I have 3 units, and I know that a flat is 5 by 5 or 25. So there would be 28 units in the number 103 base 5. All right, what if you had 2304 base 5? How many units would that be? So we can model that number with our manipulatives. So we have 2 long flats. We have 3 flats. We have no longs, and we have 4 units. Alright, so 2 long flats, 3 flats, no longs, and 4 units. So how many units would that be? So I start out with 4 units. Each flat is 25 and I have 3. So 3 times 25 is 75. And then a long flat is 25 times 5, or 125, and we have 2 of those. So now we add, and there would be 229 units in the number 2304 base 5. Okay, now let's go the other direction. Let's say that we know the number of units that we have. What is the base 5 number? So first I take out the largest group that I can. Remember that I have 5 to the third, 5 to the second, 5 to the first, and 5 to the 0, which is 125, 25, 5, and 1. So I can take 25 out of 28, and that leaves me 3 units. So in writing that number, I would have 1 flat, I would have no longs, and I would have 3 units base 5. Okay, you do this one. What if you had 126 units? What base 5 number would that be? Okay, the greatest of the place value groups that I can take out is 125. So that means that I have 1 long flat, I have no flats, I have no longs, and I would have 1 unit left over, base 5. Okay, these are the 2 problems that I want you to do and send to me on Blackboard. If you have 200 units, what is the base 5 number? And if you have 2004 base 5, how many units is that? So you can upload your answers on Blackboard.